will begin. Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, September 13th, 2018 regular session of the Xenia City Council. We've been in special session this evening since 5:30 for both an executive session and then a special session discussing a variety of business. We are now ready to begin. At this time, I would ask Reverend Will Urschel from Emmanuel Baptist Church to come to the podium for a prayer this evening, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Scrivens. If you would rise with me, please, for the invocation and pledge.
Sure, let's go ahead and pray. Father, we thank you again that you are a good God and a gracious God, and we thank you for blessing our city. And Father, we thank you for each of the council members and for the directors here and for the folks on all the different aspects of the city, the folks that are out tonight outside of these walls that are protecting us from the safety perspective with the police and the fire departments and the paramedics and the city workers who are working a lot of times in the evenings and the early mornings to get things prepared for us. And so we just thank you for all these folks and their willingness to serve us here in the city. God, I pray for wisdom for the council tonight, that they can hear each other well. Father, you tell us in Proverbs to be quick to listen and slow to speak. And I just pray that the decisions they make would be a good blessing on us as our city as well too, Father. We praise things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Pastor Urschel and Councilman Scrivens. If I could have roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace, Councilman Scrivens.
Here.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Here.
Councilman Smith. Councilman Dean.
Here.
Mayor Mays.
Here.
President Engel.
Here. I'd like to make a motion, please, to excuse Vice President Wallace and Councilman Smith. Both have advised that they have business and personal commitments this evening. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scrivens. Any discussion or question on the motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Now we have an opportunity for approval of minutes. Minutes before us are August the 23rd, 2018, the regular session. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Dean. Discussion or question on the minutes, please. Seeing none, roll call.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We have no special presentations scheduled this evening, so we will move to audience comments. Anyone wishing to address the Xenia City Council this evening, please feel free to do so. Step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 4 to 5 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm back again. Mike Burrell, 2304 Carolina Drive here in Xenia. I'm going to try and fit everything I want to talk about in the 3 to 4 minutes. One is the Dayton Xenia property where the proposed low-income housing development is going to be. I would like to make some requests that you guys push to the builder. And what I think you guys need to do, because I lived in somewhere in Xenia before where we got screwed by the zoning. One, relook at the zoning. I request that you grant no easements to make it to where they can put the buildings closer together to get more packed in there. There's a reason why, because you're screwing the property owners around them. You know, if they can't build something within a certain distance from their property line, then somebody new coming in shouldn't be able to either. So nobody should be treated special. That's one. Also, talk to the builders. From now on, anybody who wants to come and say, hey, we want to build low-income property for housing development and supposedly give a path to homeownership, for everything I've read on this building project, it is not a path to homeownership whatsoever. It is an apartment building where they charge rent, and that's it. What we need to do is start focusing on neighborhoods of houses from about $80,000 to $115,000. Find builders who can do it. Why? Because if you have a citizen who owns property and they do it, they have more stake in the city, and they become better taxpayers by everything. Ownership is the best way to have a stake in a city. So that's what we need to start pressuring builders for, instead of saying, hey, let's put up apartment buildings. I know some people want apartments and they don't want to have all the land, but there's other people that they look at these houses are like over 150,000 going, gee, I can't afford that, or I'm barely going to afford it. Let's not try and do what all the other cities are doing. Let's do what this city needs. Our population isn't growing. You have 26,000 people, 6,000 people vote. Anybody know how many people are the lower income, how many people are actually the taxpayers in this town? It's less than 40% of the actual taxpayers, the actual tree people, who don't get their money back at the end of every year. So we need to build a better tax base, get people to, one, home ownership, one, you need to get a path toward getting people off lower income, getting them into better jobs. Let's start looking at getting big businesses in this town instead of just, okay, let's get another fast food place, another something. So, as I said, we need to pressure, see if you can. I doubt if it's too late. It's probably too late now. Talk to that builder, see if, hey, would you be willing to build houses? Yeah, you're not going to make as much, but you know what? This city needs more than just apartment buildings. Second thing, the roads I've noticed, seeing people talk about on Facebook, notice there's some stoplights that have been taken out, and there's been some wrecks. Who did that? The one down by the Ramada, I guess, it's either not functioning or it's out, and there are a few other things people are saying, griping about it. If there's an existing stoplight there, why would you take it out? Or for traffic signal, maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm wrong, don't do that. Don't do goofy stuff. Fire division and police, they're coming up on their equipment. Time to start replacing things. Y'all got to figure out how to do that too. It was not in the budget. The roads, do you have a backup plan yet when this levy fails miserably? It's going to. And lastly, next fall, 3 seats are coming up, right, for re-election. I'm willing to bet some people will not be sitting here if things don't change. It's going to change drastically in this town if we don't figure out a solution. And it's not just you guys, it's everybody. Because we're broke, we have no money, the taxpayers are limited. You only have, like I said, 6,000 people vote. You have less than 50% of the people who are actual, honest taxpayers paying for everything. We're not growing, we got to figure out how to do it. So you guys are our leaders, figure it out. Or there will be new leaders. So thank you.
Would anyone else care to come and address the Xenia City Council this evening, please?
Yeah, I'm back again. My name is Kenneth Harbison. I live at 1532 Calmore Drive. I still can't understand why you guys think we need a roundabout up here on East Church Street and Columbus Street. Columbus Street is 42 going into Wilberforce and Central State, or whatever. See, I went up there about a week ago, and I sat up there for a half hour monitoring the traffic that you guys say we have so much a big problem up there. Well, I talked to some of the property owners up there also, and they're very vocal, just like I am. Don't understand why you need one. Then I found out, well, the city owns some of that property up there. So I don't know where that come from, but that's what I heard. So, but I can't understand why it's been like this for over 50-some years. The accident rate up there is no big thing. You don't hear somebody getting killed up there every week or every year. The way I'm understanding, 5 Points is worse than what you got up there. So, and we don't live in Europe, and we don't, roundabouts are unsafe if you don't know how to negotiate them. And then I heard somebody say, well, the city is trying to keep semis out downtown Dayton, downtown Xenia. So, a semi with a 53-foot trailer cannot go on one of them roundabouts. Heck, they can't even turn up here on Main Street in Detroit without running over half the curb. So I think you guys better consideration, instead of wasting money on that, put it where it should be on the streets. Plain point blank. The streets still look like crap. So I know it's getting time to the end of the year, you can't use blacktop and all that stuff. I've been around a little while. But you need to get the streets back in shape where they should be in over 10, 12 years. And you're not doing it. And if you sell the city property that you say that you put on the ballot or wherever you've had negotiated for, put it on the streets where it belongs. So that's my greatest beef still. Like I said, I've been there 45 years. 40 over my life, I looked it up the other day, it's 48 years. And I still haven't got my streets paved either way. I pay taxes on both streets. And I still ain't got mine. Madam Mayor, I understand you live on Church Street and you got yours paved. That's what I heard. Now, I'm just telling you what I heard from up there, the people on the corner. So, that we do not need a roundabout in Xenia. Really, we don't.
Anyone else care to come and address the Xenia City Council this evening, please?
Evening, Council. My name's William Urschel, 2624 Kettke Court here in Xenia. And just want to let you know I've put my name in the hat for the open council seat for that Mr. Scrivens is going to be stepping out of. So just want to introduce myself to you tonight. My wife and I moved here 34 years ago. I came here as a second lieutenant in the Air Force. And my plan at that time was to spend 3 years here and get out of Dodge. I had no inclination to stay here at all. But I'll tell you, after moving here, buying our first house here in Xenia, starting to have kids born here and living in the community, we decided that this would be a great place to stay, raise a family. So made a tough decision, separated from the Air Force at that time, and stayed on at the base as a civilian, and finished up my career there of 34 years, retired last December. During that time, had a good opportunity to understand the technologies and things that go on with the base. You know, it's one of the, if not the largest, one of the largest employers here in the area, and obviously very important in Greene County. I was technical director for Air Force Material Command, retired as a technical director for all of our Air Force fighter and bomber programs at the base. So I get what's going on at the base, understand that. Also understand there's not very many folks that work at the base, live out here as well too. And matter of fact, back in '96, when the internet was getting started, I was getting such a hard time from everybody, I picked Xenia Rules as my internet address. So every time somebody sent me an email, they would have to put down Xenia Rules with that. So and it's still there too, xeniarules@aol.com. One of my goals, though, while I was here at the community too, was to stay involved, not just at the base. And so over that time, got very involved in my local church, Emmanuel Baptist, youth director there, children's director, adult ministries, and eventually went into the pastorate there too. Longtime coach for YRC baseball and kids soccer here in town. Did that for over 10 years. I volunteered at the juvenile detention center for 10 plus years. I did a lot of work out there with them. Involved with the Xenia Christian School and the Legacy Center as it stood up. Remember the first night we were there for a prayer session and we turned the light switch on and the wall caught on fire, and I thought, man, here we are and we're going to burn this place down. And we haven't paid a dime yet. But walked through that whole process with the city as well. I was on the board and chairman of the board there with Dayton Christian Schools as we got the Legacy Center stood up. Involved with the Cleft Youth Center here in town that's over at Xenia Naz and their community center, and board chairman with that for a while, and with our Xenia Area Association of Churches and Ministries. And I'll tell you, we have just a very rich faith community in our city, and wonderful families. And now that I'm retired, I'm pastoring full-time at the church. I'm also a professor of cyber assurance and communications at George Mason University, part-time there as well too. So I'm staying involved, on the technical side of things. But I'll tell you, I just am interested in serving my community any way I can, and if that means going and cleaning toilets at the detention center, I'm okay with that. If that means coming here and helping out here and using some of the things I've learned through the years, being involved with the community and with technology and stuff, I'd love to do that as well too. I am concerned about our city. Poverty rate here is 25% plus. If you look at the income tax distribution, about half the folks have an income that have filed their taxes of $20,000 or less. And there's only about 360 folks that are over, $150,000 here. That's a lot different than Beaver Creek or Bellbrook or Centerville or a lot of the townships that surround us in that context. So, a lot of the blue-collar jobs that used to exist in Dayton, GM, Delco, and those kind of places in Wilmington just don't exist anymore. And it's a terrible challenge. 80% of the folks here in the city only have a high school education. And so it's not the city's responsibility to solve all these problems, but the city can obviously be a great help in a lot of ways. And obviously working with the county and other agencies, state and federal too. But I'll tell you, at the end of the day, we live in cities, right? And we associate ourselves with the city itself. And so when people think about where they're at in their community, they think of Xenia. They don't think about Greene County or Ohio or other places. They think about Xenia. And so I just love to be come alongside and do whatever I can to assist folks. I'm interested in this position because it's a one-year position, and if it works out, great. And you folks may say, Will, this is not a good thing for you, and you can tell me to leave after a year. That'd be great too. So, so I know I've got a real challenge. This is a write-in ballot, and I have a name that's really hard to spell. So I just would like to thank you for this time, and I also want to let you know that I would like to meet with each of the council members and get some feedback from you folks too, and also with the city directors too, prior to the election time. My mom has been very involved with Marlene Johnson with county and state politics over time, and I'll tell you, she initially told me, don't do this. And I said, Mom, it's okay. I've worked with the federal government for 34 years. I think I can figure out what's going on a local level. So she finally acquiesced and said she was going to at least vote for me. So I know I have one vote, but she can't because she doesn't live in the city. So I said, Mom, it's not going to work, but I would appeal for your votes as well, too. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to meeting with all of you.
Anyone else care to come and address the Xenia City Council, please?
One last thing I forgot to say. I forgot to mention the bike safety lanes. I think I figured out what the major problem is. I was driving down Main the other day, and it was right beside the bike safety lane. There was two goofballs riding their bicycles in the street and I see it common. Can they get cited for that by the Xenia police? If not, they should, because a bike lane was.
State code to ride your bike on the street, even if there's bike lanes. We cannot make them use those bike lanes.
And I believe there's also a state law in the state of Ohio that any motorized vehicle, if it's 50 cc's and over, you're allowed to ride because they're a lot like a motorcycle, because they can attain the speeds of 50 to 60 miles an hour. But if you're under 50 cc's, you're not allowed to ride on the road. So how does a bicycle get away with that if they cannot attain a speed faster than 25 miles an hour? I think that's a state law where you can't ride. I thought there was.
No.
So anyway, and also in my closing statement, a good friend of mine is running as a write-in ballot candidate, Billy Carrico. So hope to see her up here.
Anyone else care to come and address the Xenia City Council this evening, please? Thank you. We will move on to old business. Our item under old business this evening is ordinance 2018-27, a second reading. It is amending chapter 234 and sections 260.03, 274.05, and 274.07 of the codified ordinances of the city of Xenia, originally introduced by Vice President Wallace. In his absence, I will move for passage as written. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scrivens, or Councilman Louderback, sorry. Did not catch as I was. Any discussion or question on the motion, please?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to commend the law director on her due diligence on reviewing parts of the code that need a timely review. And I think she's gotten the language up to date, and I think it's a step forward.
Thank you. Any other discussion or question on this motion, please? Seeing no more, roll call.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Louderback?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We have no public hearings scheduled this evening, so we will move on to new business. First item is ordinance 2018-28, an introduction, authorizing the sale of the properties located at 220 East Church Street to Kyle and Jenny Holmstrom and Gary and Sharon Creviston. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. The property at 220 East Church Street was acquired by the city of Xenia via tax foreclosure about a year and a half ago. The property consists of 2 parcels and an approximately 3,200 square foot house constructed in 1908. The property is owned R1C historical residential. The property is one of several that the city owns that at staff's request here a few weeks back, a couple months ago, I think, council authorized us to market those properties for sale with the intent of returning those properties back to private ownership. The property has been listed as available online for well over the past month. There are 2 points of consideration related to the disposition of the properties. So first, staff is recommending that a small portion of the current parcel, which is M40000200050032700, and there's no other way to refer to it than by that parcel number, which is a vacated right-of-way in which adjoins 220 East Church Street, house be split, conveying a small portion thereof to Gary and Sharon Creviston for $1 and other considerations. The Crevistons live at 229 Hayes Avenue, property which rests immediately to the east of the subject right-of-way and immediately north of the city-owned house at 220 Church Street. The Crevistons have an access agreement adjoining this property to ensure access to their residential property, and the overall arrangement is a carryover situation dating back many years that is just frankly confusing and inappropriate. So staff feels that a small portion of this right-of-way, which extends to Hayes Avenue, holds no meaningful value for our community, and that by conveying the property to the Crevistons, the city would be correcting a long-standing property access issue. The city has conducted the necessary survey work required to split and reassign that right-of-way property, and the Crevistons have agreed to pay for an equal portion of that expense for the survey. Second consideration for council is disposition of the primary property located at 220 East Church. We have received interest from 2 private parties regarding the site after considerable evaluation and discussion, including input from various staff members with construction experience. Staff is recommending this evening that council introduce the steps necessary to sell that site to, including the remaining right-of-way area, to Kyle and Jenny Holmstrom for $20,000 and other considerations as negotiated. The Holmstroms are interested in renovating the property to its historic glory, making this their primary residence where they will raise their growing family. As staff has demonstrated to council, the subject structure is in pretty significant need of interior restoration to make it habitable. This includes some mold mitigation, major electrical and plumbing work, needs a complete mechanical replacement, drywall replacement, and a lot more work, to be honest. Significant reinvestment will be necessary to restore the home, and this of course impacts the overall property value. We've provided some photos here this evening to council of the interior for those that haven't seen it. Council's established that it desires to sell city-owned properties which do not have a strategic value, and to do so for a fair price, repositioning those properties back into private ownership for the advancement of our community. In the case at hand, we've negotiated arrangements that we believe are fair given all the conditions, and the outcome will conform to the strategic priority of promoting single-family owner-occupied homes in that historic Carnegie Historic District neighborhood. So staff recommends introduction this evening.
May I have an introduction from one of my colleagues, please?
I'll introduce them.
Introduced by Councilman Scrivens. Thank you. Next item under new business is Resolution 2018-Z, also an introduction, accepting the amounts and tax rates as certified by the Greene County Budget Commission for 2019, authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying the tax levies to the Greene County Auditor. Mr. Finance Director.
Thank you, Council Presidents. The ORC does require the council authorize necessary property tax levies for both inside millage as well as the outside millage is approved by the voters. The council is asked each year to pass a resolution to accept the amounts and rates as determined by the Greene County Budget Commission. For 2019, the Greene County Commission has certified an estimated revenue for the property taxes that total $1,528,000. That amount is an amount equal to what was certified by the Commission last year for property taxes. The commission also, or the county auditor, estimates the local government allocation for 2019 as $740,448.55. This number is an increase of about $26,000 over what was estimated for 2018. The resolution must be filed with the county auditor prior to October 1st, so staff is recommending tonight that council introduce a resolution to be approved at the second meeting this month.
Thank you very much. May I have an introduction from one of my colleagues, please?
So introduced.
Introduced by the mayor. Thank you. Next item is Resolution 2018-AA, an introduction. Resolution of intent to appropriate fee simple interest and/or temporary construction easements in the properties located at 335 East Church Street, 182 North Columbus Street, 191 North Columbus Street, and the corner of North Columbus Street and East Church Street. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. As indicated, Resolution 2018 AA is recommended for introduction. City of Xenia was awarded through MVRPC STP grant funding for the design and implementation of improvements to the intersection of North Columbus and Church Street, with ODOT slated to begin construction on the project in the spring of 2019. In order to proceed with the construction of the improvements in the coming year, ODOT does require the city to acquire all of the necessary right-of-way and/or temporary construction easements. To do so, we've conducted two independent appraisals of real property to establish fair market value price for each of the affected property owners. If the affected property owner declined the fair market value of either by direct refusal and/or no response, the city does begin a process for appropriation in order to avoid delays in the project. The project affects in some form 8 different properties. The city was able to reach preliminary agreement with 4 of those 8 property owners. The city was unable to reach agreement with 2 of the property owners, and another property is currently subject to an open probate case. And because the current owner of one property could not be determined, it's necessary to begin the process for these parcels in case they have to be appropriated. Upon approval of the resolution, final offers will be sent to 3 of the property owners in the hopes that we can reach a final agreement without having to advance through formal appropriations proceedings. The 4th property that currently is being registered to a Nathaniel Williams will have to be appropriated as we cannot establish who the legal property owner is due to lapses in official records with the county, and the law director can explain that in a little more detail. So I'm going to kick it over to Danette and allow Danette to give some context procedurally.
As Brent said, this resolution is just a resolution of intent. If we were to appropriate any of these properties in the future, this is the first step we have to take. This resolution is either sent or published in the paper, and a final offer is sent to those property owners. So this resolution in and of itself does not authorize the filing of an appropriation petition. We would have to come back to council to get authorization to do that. There is one property that we know we are going to have to file for an appropriation on. That's the one Brent just mentioned. The property is currently listed as being owned by a Nathaniel Williams, who bought the property in 1889. Mr. Williams passed away in Springfield in 1939. I have been to the Clark County Probate Court. The property was not mentioned in his 1939 will. I was unable to track down any of the heirs, so the only way for us to get this property is through an appropriation proceeding. The 3rd property, as Brent mentioned, is in probate. There's an open probate case. I've been in contact with the probate attorney. That is the estate of Quinn Ames Jr. I believe we've reached an agreement on that, so it does not look like we will have to appropriate that one. The other 2 are currently owned. The initial offers were rejected, so we would send a letter and final offers to those property owners to see if they would take them. But to be able to file any type of appropriation, we went ahead and listed all 4 properties. One for sure we know we're going to have to take. Our hope is that we are able to reach agreement on the other 3. But this is just the first step if we need to come back to you and ask that you authorize us to file those appropriation petitions.
Thank you very much. May I have an introduction from one of my colleagues, please?
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. Introduced by Councilman Scrivens. Next item is Resolution 2018-BB, an introduction, supporting the 1.03 mil bond measure requested by the Greene County Career Center for construction of a new facility at US Route 68 and State Route 35. Mr. City Manager.
At the direction of City Council, staff has prepared Resolution 2018-BB, an action supporting the bond measure as requested by the Career Center for construction of the facility, which would be adjacent to the intersection of US 68 and 35 in the city of Xenia. And so because this is at Council's direction, I think it'd be appropriate if any of you want to speak additionally to go ahead and do so.
Any comments from my colleagues? Would any of my colleagues care to introduce?
I will.
Thank you. Introduced by Councilman Lauterbach. Next item is Resolution 2018-CC, strongly urging the Ohio Governor and members of the Ohio General Assembly to invest the state budget surplus in municipalities. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. At the request of members of City Council and in concert with other local governments across Ohio, staff has prepared Resolution 2018-CC, which is a resolution calling on statewide elected leadership to provide any and all surplus state general fund revenue to local governments to assist in funding core local services and or to be utilized for the repair and improvement of roadways in our communities. As noted in the agenda report, it is projected that state tax revenues have exceeded projections by an estimated $147 million, with the rainy day fund already topping out in excess of $2 billion. It is reasonable to request state leaders redirect our residents' excess state tax dollars back to local government to provide for services or improvements at the local level where it is so desperately needed after state cuts to our funding, which have certainly forced us to endure some cuts over the past years. So staff endorses this as well and recommends council introduce this evening.
Thank you. Would anyone care to introduce this resolution?
So moved.
Introduced by Councilman Lauterbach. Thank you. Our final item under new business this evening is an administrative motion approving the schedule of bills in the amount of $389,961.60. Mr. Finance Director, anything to add?
I have nothing.
May I have a motion, please, to pay our bills this
I'll move.
evening? Moved by Councilman Dean. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by the mayor. Any discussion or question on any of our bills, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. This time we have opportunity for reports of committees. First is Board of Zoning Appeals. Mayor Mays, please.
Thank you, sir. BZA met on August 27th to consider one tabled item and two additional items as follows. Variance request for 789 Industrial Boulevard to install a parking lot without required interior landscaping filed by Ryan Howard, which was removed from the table and withdrawn by the applicant. Next was variance request for 740 Silvers to allow a 40 by 40 detached garage building exceeding the maximum permitted square footage filed by Alonzo and Marina Wilson, which was withdrawn by the applicant. And last was a variance request for 380 Bellbrook to allow a covered shelter to be placed in a front yard between the principal building and Trumbull Street instead of the rear yard as required by code filed by the Family Violence Prevention Center, which was approved. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Anything for the Board of Zoning Appeals and Mayor Mays, please? Next is Traffic Commission. September meeting was canceled. Councilman Dean, anything to add?
No, it was canceled due to lack of agenda items.
Thank you very much. Anything for the Traffic Commission and Councilman Dean this evening, please? Board for Recreation, Arts, and Cultural Activities. I would like to request a slip to our next meeting as I have unfortunately left that set of minutes at home as I was rushing home late to get to this afternoon's meeting, or this evening's meeting from Wright Patterson. Final item is from Councilman Smith, who's absent this evening, so we will also reschedule the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. September meeting was canceled, but we will ask Councilman Smith if there's anything to add to that at our next meeting in the last Thursday in September. We will now move to reports from appointed officials and council comments. First, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. I do have a number of updates this evening. We've extended the splash pad season for an additional 2 weeks due to the extreme heat that we've had. Typically, we begin closing the splash pad down with Labor Day, but it seemed appropriate to keep it open. However, we are planning to close down for the season after this weekend. So we encourage folks, it's supposed to warm up here Saturday, especially with humidity and heat. So we've encouraged folks to come out Saturday, Sunday, utilize that facility and enjoy it, and then we will commence with closing that down for the season beginning next week. Community Festival, we encourage folks to come out and join the Xenia Community Festival. It begins tomorrow in our historic Shawnee Park. There will, of course, be live entertainment, kids' activities, rides, information booths, food vendors, and local arts and crafts vendors will all be present. So we ask folks to make plans to stop by the city's booth near the pavilion. We'll have promotional items, information on election and various services, and more. So join us, especially on Saturday evening from 4 to 6 p.m. down at the park. Right there near the city's tent, we will have some live equipment demonstrations with the Xenia Police and Fire Divisions, especially good for kids. I think they'll get a kick out of it. And then, of course, we remind folks that the parade is Saturday morning, beginning at approximately 9 a.m. 9? Or 10? 9. Make sure I have it right here. So we will have some traffic flow modifications set up in the morning till late morning to accommodate safety for the parade. So we ask folks to be patient with that as they traverse the city. Third, really pleased this evening to announce the first offering of what we hope will become an annual program. We're calling this the Xenia Citizens Academy. The Citizens Academy is an outreach effort in which we hope to bring members of our community up close and personal with some of our internal operations and our service delivery functions. The Citizens Academy pilot program that we're launching this fall will be a 4-session program providing insight on the city's overall structure, our budget and finance systems, programs related to services on our fire and police and public service operations, and we'll be providing some hands-on experiential opportunities with these things, not just sitting in a room, us barking at you. Participants will learn really what it takes to run a city, how their tax dollars can be spent, how they are spent, and have opportunities to tour some critical city facilities like our water treatment plant, our 911 dispatch center, fire and police facilities as well. Program participation, we're not sure quite what to expect, so we're looking at putting a cap of between 20 and 30 participants just so that we can make sure that we can accommodate this trial run. Preference will be given to Xenia City residents, but that's not necessarily a requirement. We're asking that participants be at least high school age or older, and we will accommodate on a first-come, first-served basis, again, giving preference to actual city residents. Hope to have application materials available beginning online tomorrow. The program would commence, we're looking at October 4th, running every other Thursday for 4 sessions. Starting at 6 p.m., we'll provide a light supper for folks. Be about an hour and a half to 2 hours. The second or the third and fourth sessions will extend to 2 hours because we'll incorporate some of those those tours and some of the hands-on activities. So this is intended to bring members of our community up close and personal. This is our effort to try to extend the understanding of our operations and the challenges that we have, as well as the opportunities we have to provide service. So we're really strongly encouraging participation. If you wonder where the dollars go, this is an opportunity to get some up-close exposure. Our panel of staff up here will be participating, and I've asked the mayor to come out to that first session as well and participate. So we encourage folks to participate. If you have questions, contact the city manager's office and we'll provide more information. Also, we have our final neighborhood night out of the season. So if you're in the neighborhoods near Franklin Park and Cox Elementary, we encourage you to come out next Tuesday for the final event of the season. Another great way to stay connected with city services, as well as the school district leadership and other local services here in our community. So again, next Tuesday, excuse me, September 18th from 5 to 7 p.m. And this will be located at Cox Elementary. And certainly encourage our council members to come out and participate and connect with the constituents. Final item this evening, I did mention to council members earlier and would request your consideration in looking at scheduling a special session September 20th. This would be next Thursday at 4 p.m. I understand this is a difficult time to get all of you here, and my request would be that we schedule, even if we can't get a quorum, that's fine, to get as many of you here as possible. The intent of this special session, we'd like to start at 4 o'clock. to do the walking tour that we've talked about here downtown. I want to point out some of the parking challenges or perceived challenges, some of the traffic flow issues, provide an opportunity to introduce you to a couple of our new businesses downtown. I want to take a look at the 3rd Street retaining wall, which is an issue we've talked a lot about that we feel that council needs to see up close and personal. And then concluding there after the tour, we'd come back here and we want to have some preliminary discussion on some of those items and how they might impact our 4-year CIP. And we're looking for some direct feedback, some direction from council in that discussion so we can allow the assistant city manager and our staff to complete our 5-year CIP, which of course is due to council here in a couple of weeks. So if you're amenable, again, I know it's kind of short notice. I mentioned in an email here a week or so ago, and I know it's a tough time, but if you can accommodate it, again, we're trying to get as much information to inform you about needs and challenges as much as possible. So if you're amenable, we would recommend that next week. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Anything for our city manager this evening, please? Mr. Finance Director.
I have nothing this evening.
Thank you. Anything for our Finance Director this evening, please?
Just one question. We're entering to about the last of this 3rd quarter, and from where you sit, what are the numbers looking like in terms of the actuals versus our projections?
Our income tax revenues are just beyond what they were last year, so it's something like a 0.11% increase. We're projecting a 2% increase. Some of that may be a timing issue. We've fluctuated from month to month. So right now we're about $160,000 under that projected income tax amount. So hopefully the last quarter will be good to us and we'll end up hitting that 2% projection. I don't think it's unrealistic to think that we'll wind up there. The end of July we were actually at over 2%. So we see some fluctuation month to month. So we'll see how the last quarter pans out. But generally those revenues are generally on course, and the expenditures are as well. So we'll have an updated projection for council certainly once we've wrapped up the CIP. There are a lot of moving parts as we shift projects from one year to another, and as we finalize all of that, I'll have an updated projection for everyone to review to see where we're at. But we're trending towards meeting what was projected for 2018.
Good, very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anything else for our Finance Director, please? Madam Law Director.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anything for our Law Director this evening, please? Moving to comments from council and mayor. Mayor, please.
Thank you. We'll start with August 24th, the Battle of the Backyards, the Xenia Buccaneers and the Beaver Creek football team. It was very exciting that Xenia won that football game and we were able to bring the trophy back home. I know Mayor Stone had a hard time letting go of that trophy, so that was a good night and the guys did a great job. I wanted to specifically thank Mayor Keller. He hosted a behind-the-scenes tour of Spark Place, the Fairborn's Incubator Kitchen. It was very interesting to see what they're doing there and hopefully give us some ideas that could possibly come to fruition here as well. On August 28th and 29th, it was a huge privilege to participate in a Civil Leaders Tour where we went down to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, and I want to thank our host, the 445th Airlift Wing, and that was with Colonel Willis and Colonel Ansel Dua, who is the Vice Command of the 88th Airlift Wing, also was a host for us. So it was a very educational trip. We learned a lot of what goes on with a lot of what they do with the refueling, the KC-135. I feel very smart when I talk about this now, since I did the simulator and all. But it was a really neat tour, and it was a neat time to meet other leaders, both from this area and in Tampa. So it was thank the base for inviting us. And let's see, on September 5th, Dr. Robert Franklin invited me out to Central State to listen and participate in a freshman speech class, and their topic that they presented was the ways that Central State and Xenia could partner together and the things that could happen if they did. And it was really exciting to hear freshmen talk about that who are new to the area and what they see, the attributes of Xenia and the attributes of Central State. And they did a really outstanding job. Those freshmen really worked hard on their speeches, and it was fun to listen and to be able to give them some feedback. And I just wanted to say I'm excited about the festival this weekend, and also tomorrow night. The Bucks are hosting Greenville here in Xenia at 7 p.m. So good luck. That is it.
Councilman Louderback.
Thank you. I want to congratulate Mary Crockett, our Community Development Director. She received a certification. It's an economic development finance professional. So hats off to her. Also, one of our police officers, David Elliott, received the Casey Elliott Memorial City's Finest Award. Congratulations to him. And I'm not familiar with this publication, but it comes from Akron, where there's an article about Xenia. The writer is a syndicated columnist, Pete's World, and he talks about the city of Xenia, the bicycle capital of the Midwest, and it was a very, very well done article. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Dean.
I have nothing further to add this evening.
Thank you. Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen, City of Xenia. As you know, I will not be on the ballot this coming election, and I wish the write-in candidates all the best, and the best person will win. Just a few things, Mr. President. On the 28th of this month, I think the mayor and I will be participating. There's only 5 participants participating over at Wright Pat, along with our Xenia firefighters in a one-day activity where we'll be donning all of the fire equipment, all of the heavy stuff, and going into a burning building, wearing a gas mask and the whole bit, just to kind of get a feel of what we pay people to do for us. People that do things for us, we need to pay them and be proud that they're doing it. And for me, this is an excellent opportunity, and I'm just chomping at the bit, waiting to see if I can measure up. So I'll be working with the mayor, and she may have to carry me out of a burning building. I don't know.
I'm on it.
Just a few other things. So glad to see the Hampton Inn finally finishing its course of construction and development, and to be just in time for a homecoming at Central State University the second week in October. This Friday, Xenia plays the Greenville Green Wave. Buccaneers are 2-1, and so far we're back on track with football here in Xenia, so go Bucks. One thing that always sticks in my craw is the deplorable condition of our catch basins. I see dams of grass and weeds growing up from people's curbs to the catch basins. I mean, if we're going to shed our stormwater, and we're not going to be in a flood situation where we're actually holding and ponding water, then we need to be on the job of keeping our catch basins clean so we can keep our stormwater moving. Stormwater backs up because it can't go down the curb. And why can't it go down the curb? Well, everyone lives in front of a curb. We need to adopt the curb in front of us and keep it clean. And then we don't have a lot of staff in the city to go around every corner, every where there's and clean the catch basins. So I'm asking the citizens of Xenia, adopt a catch basin close to your house. If you have grass that's on the curb and this going out into where the water flows down between the curb and the street, we need to get that up so water can flow. We're just helping ourselves when we do that. So that's one of my major pets, and we have a couple places I've asked the city engineer to attend to. I'll be following up to see if there was any action on that or not. I tell people, if you want action, call me. If you don't want action, don't call me. Call somebody else. But if you call me, I'm going to make sure and follow it up till something gets done. We've had an accident on South Detroit and 3rd Street, and a couple of the residents in that area said that corner there's city bushes or something. We're not maintaining them. I hear Brad Montgomery across the street paid people to come and clean it up. That's ridiculous. So if we own catch basins, if we own curbs and sidewalks, then we need to stay on them and keep them up. So that's my soapbox for this evening. And glad to know that there are people who are willing to step up and even run as a write-in. The state precluded me from running as a write-in for some quirk in the law. I'll be sending a letter to your dad to see if we can change the provisions in 3513 of the Ohio Revised Code. With that, Mr. President, I yield back the balance of my time, and I thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thank you. And just a general question for you. You're going on that excursion with the firefighters. Have you heard of what their informal name for that is?
I have not.
Cook the Councilman.
Oh, Christ.
I was invited to that one time. I then was told what the alternate name was. I decided to pass at that point.
This is going to be fun. This
But
will
I'm
be
sure you'll have a
interesting.
good time.
Yeah.
My thought, I would share obviously the views of many of my colleagues regarding the upcoming festival and obviously taking care of our city property and such. And if you'll bear with me, I might just offer one other thought that's perhaps even a bit more broad that then takes us back home. I'm not a big reader of Facebook. Most of my Facebook things has to do with a variety of charities that my wife and I support. But there was an interesting post that came across. And of course, as I'm sure about everyone in this country knows, this week, just 2 days ago, was the anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks. Clearly, no one ever wishes that we could go back and relive September the 11th, 2001. But this particular passage that I read suggested that the person writing it, and that had hundreds or thousands of likes to go along with this thought, was that they dearly missed September the 12th, 2001, because of the great unity that this country felt towards one another. The ability to set aside differences of economic standard, race, religion, all things that seem to naturally divide us, were able to be set aside because we had a clear understanding of who we were as a people and what we should be about. And I must confess, I clicked the like button on that, and I 100% agree. I would encourage, and my missive back to my colleagues and the citizens of Xenia is that let's try to think of every day in terms of our orientation as Americans or Ohioans or City of Xenians as a real desire and need to be unified on issues and a real desire to be in constructive engagement with all of our friends, neighbors, and those who the day before we didn't perhaps consider our friends and neighbors, because we are all in this together. With that, I will entertain a motion to, excuse me. We had set, per request last week, an executive session to conclude this meeting to discuss personnel matters, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee. We were essentially going to meet to discuss our reviews of our appointed officials. Given that we have two of our members absent this evening, I would like to seek the consensus of council whether you would like to go ahead with this evening's executive session or whether you would prefer to wait for our other two members, hopefully at the next meeting, to be available.
I'd prefer to wait for the full body.
Me too.
Thank you. We will pass over then our executive session item, and we'll reschedule that to next week when hopefully all our members will be back with us. And now I will entertain a motion, please, to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Latterbach. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Councilman Scrivens. Roll call, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Take care, Jeff.